Hey everyone, it's Miss K, and in this video today, I'm going to show you how to shade using color pencils. Today we're just going to do a basic form. We're going to do some spheres, and I'm going to show you multiple ways of doing that using color pencils. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys so you can see exactly what I'm seeing. All right, so all of you should be looking at my spectrum that we did in that previous video. So before I get started drawing my spheres, I just want to take a couple minutes explaining some things with color and color theory so you understand what we're doing before we do it. So if you're going to use color to make something look three-dimensional, you need to think about where is your lightest color. So when you're picking colors out, you want your lightest color to be the place that's closest to your light source. So you need to be thinking about that when you're selecting colors before you even get started. Okay, so for one of our circles that we're going to turn into a sphere, we're going to do analogous colors. Now remember, analogous colors just mean that they're next to each other on the color wheel. So that means that they would be right next to each other. You wouldn't jump from yellow to purple or yellow to red or orange to green. They want to be right next to each other. So you have green, yellow, and orange, red, and violet, etc., etc. Okay, so when you're picking analogous colors to do a sphere or any sort of shape, you want to have your color that is closest to yellow be your highlight color. So of course, if you're doing yellow, green, and blue, your highlight color would be yellow. If you're doing yellow, orange, and red, your highlight color would be yellow, etc., etc. So if you wanted to do orange, red, and violet, your highlight color would be orange. If you did green, blue, and violet, your highlight color would be green because it is closest to yellow. So the closer you are to yellow on the color wheel, that is the lighter the color. Of course, if you're actually using yellow, yellow is going to be your highlight color. Okay, so we're going to start off by doing some analogous shading using a sphere. We're going to take a circle and turn it into a sphere. Remember, circles are flat, two-dimensional object. A sphere is three-dimensional, which would make it a form. So I'm going to go ahead and take my analogous colors. I'm going to do a light green, a darker green, and a blue color. So I have light green, dark green, and a blue. You can do any colors you want. Okay, but I'm going to take these three colors, and this is going to be how I'm going to create a circle turn a circle into a sphere. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my lightest color, and to make a circle, I often have students wanting to trace something, like have like a water bottle or a protractor or something like that. Honestly, you just have to do a circle a couple times very lightly, and the lines will start to mesh together. So let me just show you what I mean by that. So I'm just drawing my hand in a general circle, okay? And I know it's very light, so it's hard for you guys to see. But as I did that, you start to see the basic outline of a circle. This does not need to be perfect, by the way. Okay. So I've traced an outline, a rough outline of a circle on my screen. And I'm going to go ahead and start doing something called color mapping. I'm not sure if that's a specific art vocabulary word, but that is what I've always called it. So color mapping is when you just take your image, your section that you want to color, and you decide where each color is going to be. And so you do that by coloring really lightly all over the entire section, so you know where your different colors are going to be, so you can see if it looks right before you keep going and adding additional layers. Okay, so before you start anything else, you have to decide where your light source is going to be, so you know where it's going to be the lightest and where it's going to be the darkest. So I'm going to go ahead and have my light source coming from the top right-hand side. I'll go ahead and draw a very light arrow with my green so I can erase it later. You guys can hardly see it, so I'll press a little bit harder. You do not need to do an arrow on yours, especially if you're going to use this for something, but if it's helpful, you absolutely may. Okay, and we're going to do the same process that we did for coloring this in, but we're just going to start by doing our basic layers first so we make sure that we know where we want all of our colors to be. Okay, now the important thing for coloring anything or shading anything in, especially when you're trying to make something look realistic and three-dimensional, is you want to color in the direction that the form follows. Ms. K, what do you mean by that? What I mean is that this right now is a circle, okay? We want it to look like a sphere. If you think about things that are three-dimensional and you think of like a ball, right? Balls in no place are flat, right? If you were to take your hands and hold a ball in your hands would curve if you were to hold it like this. Okay, there's no point where your hand would be completely flat on the surface. which means that when we're coloring in our circle to make it look like a sphere, we have to use curved lines. So if any of you are familiar with a globe, it's going to be very similar to those latitude and longitude lines. So I'm going to go ahead. You do not need to do this unless it's helpful, but I'm just doing it very, very lightly. Okay, so my lines would be curved on both sides. Okay, so right in the middle is where you'd have a more flat line, and the closer up you get, the more curved your shape is going to be. So you can see even just by adding those few basic lines, it already starts to look so much more three-dimensional. Okay, the reason I share that is because it's so important you're not coloring in a flat straight line, because it's not going to make this look three-dimensional. So it doesn't matter just how you and where you apply color, but it has to do with how you apply color as well. Okay, so again, we're gonna say my light source is coming from up here at the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and color map and just add a light layer of color over here by my green. So I'm gonna go in a circular motion, and then I'm gonna go in a C-shaped motion, coloring in my form. And I want a lot of green up here at the top. Very similar process to what we did over here. Okay, but I'm not gonna do tons and tons of layers right now because again, I'm color mapping. I wanna make sure I like where everything is and that it's correctly drawn before I move forward. Okay, so I have my light green over here. Okay, then I have my dark green I'm gonna move to, and I want my dark green to kind of start down here, and it's gonna slowly fade up into this lighter green section. Okay, you'll notice again, I'm curving my lines, curving how I color them. Okay, so I have my darker green on top of my lighter green. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add blue. So again, I went from light green to dark green to blue because those are analogous colors. Please make sure you're using analogous colors for this one. Again, analogous is just a fancy word for saying that they are right next to each other on the color wheel. And I'm gonna go ahead and take this outline of blue, and I'm just following, again, that exact same form. Okay, so far I have just colored in one direction. I've done really light layers, and it goes from a darker color to a lighter color. Okay, be aware of this kind of line here that you start to see with my differences between my green and my blue. We are going to fix that in just a few moments, but I'm going to show you how. Okay, so at this point, you should look at this. You should know exactly where you put your colors. You should say, hey, are these colors in the right place? And if they're not, take this time. You can erase. You can try again. You can lighten up different areas, but now is the best time to be doing that. So if you like the way your colors are looking and they're looking good, again, making sure that you have that nice C shape, you can go ahead and rotate your paper and follow that same C shape in the opposite direction. Now, remember, you're not wanting this light green to go all the way down here. You're still wanting it to stay in the same area. So I'm just gonna do kind of, I'm not going all the way down, but I am still doing that same kind of C shape. Okay, so I'm just adding an additional layer of color. This is gonna help cover up some of my color pencil. And I'm gonna go ahead and blend it down pretty far into that darker green color. And I'm gonna really make sure I've layered a lot of this because it is my lightest color. So you do wanna layer more of your lighter color than you think you need, especially, if you're using yellow. Yellow is kind of always our outlier color, remember, because it's hard to see how much layers you have on white paper. Okay, so I've layered it really well. Okay, now I'm gonna move on to my darker green. And this is again where you're going to want to be a little bit more careful with how you're layering. And so slow and steady wins the race always. So I'm just going to take my green, going to go up and down into both. Again, following the form of the circle, doing nice C shapes. Following the form of my object. Okay. So I start to have some lines here. So I'm just going to take it and blend it back down. Okay, remember, if you start to see lines, the best thing to do is do like a circular motion with your pencil. That I feel like is the most effective way. Okay, I'm gonna also take my light green again, and I'm going to really blend that together, trying to blend my light green into my dark green to get rid of some of those lines. Okay, again, just doing my best. It doesn't need to be perfect. I still have a little bit of a line here. So I layered a lot of my light green, so it's a really thick layer. And then I'm just gonna take my darker green and very carefully, as light as I possibly can, blend on top. Okay, and that's a little bit smoother of a transition. It's a little easier to see in person. Sometimes, unfortunately, our projector doesn't bring everything up as nicely as we would like. Okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and shade that in, and then I'm going to take my darker blue and do that same process. So I always like on this opposite side where my light source is, I really like to have a strong outline of my circle, or now of my sphere, since I've made it into a sphere. And then I usually just try to blend that line up into my color. So again, taking it circular motions. Again, making sure you color in both directions, following the form of the object to make it look three-dimensional. And very lightly start to bring that up. And then go ahead and take your green, your darker green, and blend it back down. Again, adding more layers. So anytime, again, you see a position or a place where there's a line, you just want to go over it again with some colors. That's why you always work in light layers. And that's also why you want to color map. Excuse me. So that's why you can see over here, this starts to get a really nice intense color that really beautifully fades out and up into my yellow, or into my my green, my light green, sorry. The reason I said yellow is that if you want to at this point, you could take yellow, since yellow is right next to light green on the color wheel. And if you wanted to make this pop even more, you could add just a little bit of yellow up here. So again, it really pops and shines on through. And I'm going to go ahead and color in both directions and have that guy fade out. So the way I colored this in, my light source is actually not coming from right here. It's kind of angled a little bit more. So that's okay. Just be aware that that's something that can happen. And again, like if you notice any lines, like I'm noticing when I look at my screen to what you're seeing, that this area right here looks like it could use a little bit more blending. So I'm just going to go in a circular motion and try to blend that out a little bit more. Okay, but again, not the end of the world. This is about what you should be aiming for with this, okay? So I'm teaching you not only how to shade in a basic form, but I'm also showing you how to do it with different colors, okay? So go ahead and work on this, practice this until you feel like you're good with this. And then you can go ahead and pause the video until you're ready to move on to your next one, because now I'm going to move forward onto our next circle. All right, guys, so if you're still here, that means you're ready to move on to our next one. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to do another type of shading, also using color pencil. So in this one, we used analogous colors, again, just meaning they're right next to each other on the color wheel. And in this next one, we're going to do monochromatic circles. Now, monochromatic, if you're not familiar with that word, it just means it's different tints, tones, and shades of the exact same color. So for mine, I'm going to go ahead and pick blue. So let me move my paper over real quick and show you all these different blues that my colors came with. So I have this really nice blue. I have a darker blue. I have kind of this like nice faded, I don't even know, blue jean kind of color. It's like a purpley color. Then I have gray, white, and black. So there's multiple ways we can do this. I might actually show you 2 different ways of doing this, just so we can gain that skill. But you definitely want at least 2 different blues. I would recommend going for like a sky blue and then another blue that you like that looks good with it. So I'm probably going to take these 2 colors. I might save these and kind of put these off to the side and use them later if I need to. But for now, I'm just going to kind of pick 2 different ones. So this blue right here is my darkest. It's like that primary color blue. And this one is a different kind of blue that's had white added to it. So that's why it's lighter. That would be considered a tint of blue. Now, if I took gray to any section, it would be a tone of blue because I'm adding gray to it. And then of course, if I added black, it would be a shade of blue. So we'll get into that. We'll do one circle with just these four. So we're doing tints, tones, and shades. And we'll do another one using different colors of blue to show you. So I'm going to start by doing the three blue colors. I'm actually going to add this middle one in. So we kind of have a middle tone. These two go very similarly together, and then this darker blue. And we're just going to follow that exact same process that we did earlier. Oops, I need to sharpen my pencil first. Make sure all your pencils are nice and sharp. Also, please do not feel like you have to do blue. You can do any colors you want. It's just the same practice. So if you're doing red, make sure you have a pink color. If you're doing orange, make sure you have like a really pale orange and a really like a reddish orange color, dark primary orange colors, things like that. I will say it will be a little bit harder to do your tints, tones, and shades. So adding white, gray, and black to yellows and oranges because they're so light. So I do recommend doing like a green or a red or purple or blue, but it's up to you. I'm just doing blue because I happen to love the color blue. So I'm gonna go ahead and do another circle, roughly the same size, right next to my other one. So again, I start by just coloring a circle or drawing a circle multiple times to kind of get a general frame. I'm going to go ahead and have my light source coming from this side this time. So before I had it kind of coming from right here. Okay, so you're going to do that exact same process we were coloring before. So I'll go ahead and draw those guiding lines for you. You do not need to draw this, but please do if it's helpful. Okay, so remember that you have to color a circle in the form that it is. So you have to use curved lines or your circle will not look three-dimensional. So I've gone ahead and drawn those latitude, longitude lines on my circle to make them look three-dimensional. And I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing that I did with my colored pencil one over here where I was using analogous colors. So I'm going to color in a line, in a curved line, following the form of my object. Okay, right now I'm just going in one direction. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and take my second blue color. And I'm going to add this in the middle. Okay, the farther away I go from my light source, the darker my circle is going to get. So I want to make sure that it changes. Okay, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing with my darkest blue. Now I'm knowing already before I even add this dark blue to it that this blue is not going to blend as well as these two blues did because it's so much darker. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but if I hold it up here, if you notice this dark blue is so much darker than these other two, whereas these two are much more similar, which is fine. You can still blend them, just be aware that, and I know that in advance, that this is going to be harder to blend. So I'm going to have to take time and be careful and work in layers, okay? So really look at your colors that you're choosing to use and make sure that they're as close as possible. And if not, you can still blend them, just be careful, okay? And again, for this circle, we're doing multiple versions of the same color, okay? So I'm just taking my third color, my darkest one, and I'm gonna go ahead and trace my outline. I always like to trace this outline just so it's nice and sharp, okay? And I'm gonna do really, really light layers as carefully as I possibly can. Okay, and I'm probably gonna stop there for now because I'm already seeing it's really dramatically changed the color. And again, I'm color mapping right now, so I still have the ability to layer on top of it. So if I keep going and adding lots of my dark colors, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm gonna pause using my dark value, knowing I can always go back and add more later. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of assess this, look at it, see, are the colors where I want them? Are the lines curved? Does this look three-dimensional so far? For me, it's yes, yes, and yes. If not, go ahead, pause this video, keep working till you get to this point, and then you can hit play. But again, I'm kind of in that spot where I'm ready to continue moving forward. So all I did is rotate my paper 90 degrees, and I'm going to continue coloring the exact same way, again, following the form of the object, doing the exact same thing with my color. So remember, this time my lines aren't going to go all the way down, but they're still going to follow the form of the object. So I'm using my lightest color over here. I want you to note that the blue is the most intense up here at the top where it's the lightest. Okay, and then as you go farther down, it goes all the way into my other colors. So again, anytime you notice two lines that are meeting, it just means you need to take a few more minutes blending your colors together. So I'm actually going to do a little bit more of my lightest color, just because I know my next color is darker, and it does have a tendency to eat into the other color and dramatically change it. So I want to make sure that I have a nice layer of my color down before I get started on layering my second color. Okay. So now I'm working on that second color, and I'm going to blend it all the way up and all the way down. Again, I'm going in a curved line. Following the form of my object. Okay, so hopefully you're noticing that this does take time, and that's okay. It's all about layering and practicing. Okay, so I'm liking the way that's looking. I'm gonna go ahead and take my darker blue color, and I'm going to very carefully layer that blue up into my lighter blue. I'm going to start to go in like a circular motion with my pencil, just to make sure I'm not getting any lines and that it blends really nicely together. Okay, and so as you can see, it just really starts to come together really nice. I'm going to go ahead and outline that edge again. Okay. And overall, I'm liking the way this is looking. I might go ahead and add just like a little bit more of this darker blue color. And again, unfortunately, the projector does not show off as nice as this actually looks. But if I zoom up in here, you can really see my lines are blended really with both of my circles, my spheres. That they're both blended really well, that it's showing you they're looking three-dimensional, at least at a basic level, and that there's no like big lines that are showing. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep that there. So this is again showing you monochromatically, so with different shades of blue. We're gonna do that same process using white, gray, and black. So actually adding white, gray, and black into a color to change it in that way. Oops. That's our class bell. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do just one more sphere. So if you haven't completed this one, go ahead and pause this video before I continue. But if you're still here, that means you're ready to move on. So I'm gonna go ahead and do another circle. We'll just do our third one here. Okay, so this one's gonna be a little bit bigger, that's okay. So I'm gonna start by layering white onto my sphere. This one, I think I'm going to have my light source coming from, let's have it come from this side since all of our light sources are in the center. Now, of course, you might be thinking, Miss K, why on earth would I layer white? The paper is already white. What do you want me to do? The reason why is we want the white pigment on our paper so that when we start to add our color, there's already a layer of white down that will really help make this blend really well. So again, you guys will start to see as we continue and keep moving forward. But I'm going to go ahead and just start with my white. This is going to be really important. You're paying attention to where you're coloring so you know how many layers you've done. But I'm going to go ahead and start doing white. Again, you're not going to be able to see this on the paper unless you really squint and look. So I'm going to make sure really here closest to my area that I have lots and lots of layers of white. Okay, and then I'm going to fade it down. Okay, and since I'm using white, I'm going to go ahead and do both layers just while I'm currently doing it so I don't get confused. So I've done white really centralized up here and it kind of fades out the farther it goes down. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on both sides. Okay, so I have a nice layer of white. You do want to do white first, and you'll see why in just a moment. Okay. Next, I'm going to take my gray and I'm going to add my middle tone value. Okay, you want to go very, very lightly. You don't want to overpower your white to start. So taking my gray value. If you do have a warmer gray, like a lighter gray, you can do that first if that's helpful for you. But I'm going to do the lightest layers I possibly can. Again, following the form of my object and going all the way down. Probably could curve these lines a little bit more. Okay. Now I'm going to take my gray, do the exact same thing, where I'm going up and down into my layering. So very, very carefully, as lightly as possible, I want to start to layer into my white. And this is where you'll start to notice, you'll be like, whoa, Miss K, it's so light. And that's because I'm pressing really lightly, but also I have some really nice layers of white down already. Okay, I'm gonna actually take my white and color on top of that just to get a nice lighter color. Again, going in a circular motion. And then again, just keep kind of blending those colors together. So you should start to get a really nice color that blends. Okay, just note you definitely, almost definitely are going to have like a line here unless you're using like a warmer, lighter gray. That's okay, it happens. Just again, you're doing your best. By the way, if I haven't mentioned this already in one of the videos, I do not expect any of you to be perfect at all. I've been doing this for years and years, so I'm relatively quick about it. And I, usually don't make mistakes on things like this, but we'll run into experiences where I will make a mistake and I'm giving a demo, and that's okay. That's part of life. It's part of learning. The more you try, the better you're going to get. So if you're doing one and it's terrible, try another one. Try again, try with different colors, maybe even try with a different material, which I'll be recording some more videos on doing different materials. But again, this just helps us gain practice and confidence in doing different things with art, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead. You can see, if you look very carefully, like there's a really nice layer. Excuse me, there's a really nice layer of this light gray. So I'm just gonna take my dark gray. It's the same gray, it just has less white in it. I'm gonna layer that guy down here. Okay, gonna work on those outlines, making sure they're nice and crisp. I've colored in both directions. So now I feel like I'm ready to add just a little bit of black. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the edges and I'm gonna blend my black into my gray. If you haven't noticed this already, black dramatically changes a color. So it's the exact opposite of white. So white, you want to use way more than you think you need. You always want to apply it first, and you always want to be very, very careful adding other colors into it. Black is the exact opposite. Black is the darkest color. You want to add it absolutely last. You always want to add as little as you think you need and go very, very slowly. So it's the exact opposite as what you would do with white. So I'm going to go ahead and take my black very, very carefully blend up into my gray. Okay. So at this point, you're probably thinking to yourself, Miss K, what the heck? I thought you were teaching me how to use color and how to blend different colors together. What are you doing using black, white, and gray? Aren't those just tints, tones, and shades? Why, yes, my friend, they are. I'm going to show you something super rad about what you can do once you layer basic shadows and lights with your different colors. So I added a lot of black, so I'm going to go ahead and add more gray back down into here. Again, you want your lines and your colors to blend as smoothly as possible. So you almost always want to take your lighter color and blend it back into your darker color. And vice versa, just blending as a whole is really good. So I'm noticing again, my paper started getting little like raises. I don't know if you can see that right there, but it's just because I had eraser shavings underneath. So just wipe that off if that's you. I should have cleaned my desk off before I started today. Okay, but I have a nice color here. Again, working on having it fade out as nicely as possible. Again, following those curved lines. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add one more layer of white. Again, just up here at the top before I keep going forward, because I wanna make sure I have enough white for what I'm trying to do. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and add my color. Okay, so you can add any color you want. You can add red, you can add yellow, blue, orange, green, any color. I do recommend probably staying away from yellow just because yellow and black, not the best combination. But you can pick anything. So it doesn't have to be a primary color. You can pick like a lighter color. I think I'm gonna go with red and just show you what happens with red. So we're gonna go ahead and same thing, you're coloring in the exact same way that you would considering the entire shape of the object, but I'm gonna go ahead and layer my red on top of all of this. So exact same way that you would color your other colors, you're just gonna layer on top. So what this is doing, this is our last way of showing you how to color with color pencils. This is using tints, tones, and shades to take one single color and change it by adding white, gray, and black to it. So it's relatively simple, but you do need to do those colors underneath first. So you have this really nice, rich, like dark red over here, and it starts to fade and you can see it fade. You do want to make sure you've layered your color on top enough. So again, that you're not seeing any kind of line. And you'll start to see it really starts to come together. So again, just taking a little bit of time, layering your colors on top of each other, cross-hatching, so making sure you're going in both directions. And of course, always following that form of the object, okay? So you can see that I get a really nice sphere. Again, it looks way cooler up close on my end than it does on the projecting screen. But you get a really nice fading from this light red all the way to this dark red. I will say, of course, the more grays and blacks you use, the more dramatically it's going to change your colors. So this one ended up a little bit darker than I probably would have wanted. And so if I were to do this again, again, being reflective and thinking about my work, what would I have done differently? I probably would have taken my white and colored it all the way to halfway down, and then did a warm gray in this area, and then my cooler dark gray right here, and just add the tiniest bit of black. Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, that's really, really dark. And I wonder how I could have done that differently. Okay. But again, that's just me and learning and practicing, and I haven't done this type of coloring in a while. So if I were to do it again or keep practicing, I would definitely do it smaller. But that, my friends, is how you can use color pencil in multiple different ways to create things and to make them look like they're shaded and to make them look three-dimensional. So again, I showed you how to color in 3 different spheres. I showed you how to use analogous colors to color in, to go from lights to dark. Showed you how to use monochromatic colors, so going from light to dark using different types of colored pencils that are the same color. And then I showed you another way of doing monochromatic using white, gray, and black to do tints, tones, and shades of the exact same colored pencil. So all 3 of these are options for you of ways that you can use color pencils in an artful way to create some really awesome artwork. I'm super excited to see what you guys create. You guys always astound me with your work. You are so, so talented. And I'm just privileged to be able to teach each and every one of you. So go ahead, go out and make something totally awesome with your new awesome art skills. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.